Thanks for being here. My name is Rodrigo Freitas. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. And we are going to talk about the first official contact. After this lecture, Ellam and Moacir are going to talk about Norse mythology, Celtic mythology. And during my speech, if they want, they can always help me or say something that they believe is important. And if you have any questions, just raise your hands. We're going to do this very informally. So if you have any questions at any point, you just raise your hand, and then I'll finish my thought, and then I'll try to answer to the best of my knowledge. All right? So before we actually begin talking about the most important topics that I put for this lecture, let's just break the ice a little bit. And let me ask you guys, how did our universe emerge? Which theory do you believe in? Creator or nothing? What do you think happened? Does anybody here believe that everything that exists came up from nothing? Or do you believe there was indeed a creator? Makes sense, right? Creator probably makes more sense than assuming that all of this universe, all of the stars, everything that the science can already perceive, just simply came up from nothing, right? Because nothing generates nothing, right? So, of course, there must have been a creator. And the first issue that really separates our beliefs is regarding the creator, right? Most people believe that if there was a creator, it was probably God, right? They say God created the universe, right? And according to Jan Val Ellam, it wasn't God who created the universe. The universe has a creator, but it is not God. So this is the first big issue that puts us in a sort of thinking mode, right? If it wasn't God who created the universe, then who was it, right? So that's the first aspect that we're going to talk about today. So let me just introduce myself quickly. My name is Rodrigo Freitas. This is not a very good picture, but it was the only one I had. But anyway, I'm a content creator, student and collaborator of Jan Val Ellam's Cosmic Revelations. I'm going to explain a little bit about this. What is cosmic revelation, right? And I have translated 4 of Ellam's books into English. They are available on Amazon. I'm also the editor of Conectar, the publishing company in Brazil who publishes Ellam's books. And I have written, I'm with some friends, some books. One is called Iron in Portuguese, Universes in Collision. The other one is Guide to the Universal Eras. They are all in Portuguese. And I have written A True Fantasy Island in Portuguese, and one in English called Official Contact, which is this book here, okay? And it's also available on Amazon. And today we're going to talk about these topics. I'm going to read them for you. So the first one is, are we alone in the creation? Who is the creator according to Jan Val Ellam? The many abodes of this creation, the 2 universes generated by the Big Bang. Who are the extraterrestrials? What is the link between ETs and spirits? Their plan for us, possible scenarios after the first official contact, and how Ellam believes this first official contact is going to happen, right? So Ellam has written more than 50 books. I think it's 55 books so far. And he has performed more than 1,000 speeches or lectures over the past 20 years or so. And most of these lectures are available in an institute called IEEA. It's all in Portuguese. We are starting a YouTube channel called Cosmic Reintegration, and we intend to bring most of this content to English, and it's going to be in this YouTube channel. If you are interested, it's called Cosmic Reintegration. And some of the books are already in English, but more will come along the coming months. So, and this group of books and speeches we call cosmic revelation, right? Cosmic revelation is not intended to establish truths. Is intended to make people think questions and analyzing the possible answers so that we can more or less understand a little bit more of the reality that surrounds us. And when I'm saying reality, I'm talking about the spiritual context and the cosmical context. And today we are going to talk a little bit about both, right? So everything that we are going to say here today, and Allan and Moacir are going to say after in the next lecture, is supposed to be understood as little seeds for reflection, for thinking, right? Not truths, right? That's the first aspect. So are we alone in this creation? Who is the creator according to Jan Val Ellam? Let's analyze if we are alone or not. Today, 2024, we have access to several UAP videos. Right? UAP is the fancy name for UFO, right? In Portuguese, it's called OVNI, right? In English, unidentified flying object. Now they're saying unidentified aerial phenomenon because they don't want to link to an object specifically, right? But it's the same thing. And the Pentagon released 3 videos in 2020 that became very famous on the internet. I believe you have all seen them. We also have the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, a very fancy name, created, and they are reviewing over 800 reports. These numbers are from April 30th, 2023. But this is nothing. Really, this is nothing compared to the amount of videos that are possible for anybody to see on the internet today, right? UAPs are very popular today. Everybody is with a cell phone shooting UAPs all the time. Of course, some of them are fake, but if one is real, just one among millions and millions of videos, 800 reports, this number is way bigger than that. This is just what they let us know, right? But if one is real, that means the phenomenon exists, right? Witnesses. We have one guy called David Grush. Do you know who David Grush is? No? David Grush is a former military agent, and you should Google him after. He was the first to go to the Senate in United States and swear that he was telling the truth, and he told about all these projects that involved retrieving not UAPs, but actually UFOs, right? Spaceships that were recovered by the government, and also what he called biologics, right? So beings that were in contact with the US government, okay? But we have several others. We have Paul Hellyer, former Minister of Defense of Canada. We have Robert Dean, also military from the USA. Gordon Cooper, astronaut. Don't know if you heard about him or not, but Bob Lazar. Actually, we have over 1,000 renowned people that are called whistleblowers. They are coming forward and saying that actually we are not alone, right? So again, if only one is not lying, is not being delusional, if only one is saying something that is true, it means it really exists, okay? Also, we have crop circles, right? It is estimated that over 10,000 crop circles have been reported in several countries until 2024. 10,000. It's not one or two. It's like 10,000. And they are huge, right? And some people believe it was an old couple that using like rudimentary tools, like farmers, right? Uh, I mean, you can believe what you want, but it's like 10,000 in several different countries, and they are extremely, extremely hard to do, right? If you want to try an experiment doing something like this, it will be a several days work, and these appear overnight, right? They are being investigated by ufologists. They have several characteristics that define them as something that it wasn't done by humankind, right? So it is not our purpose today to go deep into these issues. I'm just letting a little bit of evidence appear so you can imagine, are we alone or not? So who created the singularity? The singularity, it all started with the singularity. The singularity is what the science calls Big Bang, right? Mythologies call it cosmic egg, but it's the same thing. It's a very small singularity that expanded and generated two universes, one material and one anti-material. We live in the material one, and we are not even sure if the anti-material one exists. Science nowadays is assuming and it exists and is actually proving, but it's not yet known by everybody that it exists. But mythologies have talked about it for forever, right? They all describe an anti-material universe. They call, for instance, the Sanskrit word is, the singularity is called Brahmananda, right? The myth of Brahmananda. It was a cosmic egg, and from this cosmic egg, three things emerged: the creator, they call it Brahma; the anti-material universe, they call it Brahmaloka; and the material universe, Bhuloka. The Chinese call it Panku, Yin, and Yang, right? So several different mythologies call it by different names, but they are talking about the same thing. They are talking about the singularity or cosmic egg, okay? And the funny thing is that according to our knowledge today, it happened 13.7 billion years ago. James Webb telescope is now putting some questions about this time. Maybe we will understand it better along the coming months, and we will figure it out. It wasn't actually 13.7, it was 14.5 or 12.5, we don't know, but it is more or less 13.7 billion years ago. And our sun emerged 4.5 billion years ago. Life on Earth emerged 3.4 billion years ago. And nowadays we are into 2024. So what happened between the Big Bang and life emerging on Earth. This gap here, right, is a huge gap. Hello, hello. So this is a huge gap. We're talking about 10 billion years, more or less, right? And Ellam explains a lot about what happened between the Big Bang and the life emerging on Earth in his books and lectures, and we are going to talk a little bit about it today here as well. So, the many abodes of this creation. We have the material side and the anti-material side. I have this picture here just to represent a little bit, and it may help us understand. So the material side is this side with the planets, the galaxies. We have about 200 billion galaxies in the universe, probably more. That's the number we can perceive today with our science. And each of these galaxies have 200, 300, 400 billion of stars, like the sun. And each star has 10, 20, 30, 50 planets around it. So the numbers are huge, right? And this is only the material side. Can you imagine the anti-material side, right? According to Ellam, the anti-material side is not composed by planets, stars, galaxies like our side. It's composed by abodes, or locus, or genus, depending on the culture we are using, right? But they are abodes. They are uh, more or less like this, right? But in fact, it is like this. So it's all together. The antimaterial universe is here, right? Brahma Loka, all these lokas, they are not divided. They are here. Here, on my side, maybe there is a being standing here. I cannot see it. Nobody can see it. I mean, some people can, but uh, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? It only means that we cannot see it. So it is more like this. It's all mixed, right? Here we have another picture to try to explain a little bit better. The singularity would be happening here, and on this side we have the material side with the planets and the stars, and on the other side we have the antimatter universe called, I'm using the Sanskrit names, Buloka and Brahmaloka, okay? And by the way, all of these slides, we will give them to you if you want. Just let us know, and I will forward it to Sandra. Sandra will forward it to everybody. And here, there is another picture just to explain a little bit more about the Brahmaloka. We have the Loka of Shiva, the Loka of Vishnu, the Loka of Brahma, the Loka of Odin, the Loka of Zeus, which we call here the Olimpo in Portuguese. In English, it's probably Olympian, something like this, right? So we have several different realms or abodes that started existing right after the Big Bang. So according to Jan Val Ellam, when the Big Bang happened, life first emerged in the Brahmaloka, not in the Buloka. The Buloka was lifeless for more or less 6 billion years. Life migrated from the Brahmaloka into the Buloka. That means from the anti-material to the material, more or less 6, 7 billion years after the Big Bang. So already now we are going into what happened during the gap between the Big Bang and life emerging on Earth, okay? So who is the ruler of this creation? If it is not God, who is it, right? According to Ellam, the creator of this universe is the biblical Jehovah, or the Hindu Brahma, or the Islamic Allah. Actually, there are more than 20 different names depending on the earthly culture that tells this story. Okay, we are going to refer to him as Brahma or Jehovah or Allah because they are the most famous names. But I have here a little slide that shows some other names, right? So Yahweh, Jehovah, it was the fallen entity that rebuilt itself inside this creation in the Brahmaloka. It began commanding several scattered parts of itself because he didn't plan on entering the creation. According to Ellam, it was an accident or something like that. But he entered and then he had to rebuild itself. I mean, I'm saying itself because it's not a man or a woman, right? So sometimes we'll say himself or herself, itself, doesn't matter. So as soon as the singularity was created, he or a part of him fell inside the creation into multiple scattered parts. And he was trying to rebuild itself. He was trying to rebuild himself the best way he could. I mean, the only way he could. And it was, according to Ellam, it took 500 million years or even more for him to start having some kind of control over these parts that were scattered, right? And from these parts, the first beings emerged in the Brahmaloka. Allan calls them cloned angels in his books, right? They were more or less the same DNA, the same material of the creator, because it was the only thing possible back then. Yes.
I would like to know what's Jean's view in the theory that Mikhail Nebadov from the Urantia book is the creator rather than those things that you have there. So what's your vision about that?
Good. I'm going to repeat the question just because I'm using a microphone and it's being recorded, and maybe maybe the audio was not possible to be reached by microphone. She's asking about the difference between the Urantia, the book, the concept of creation in Urantia's book, and in your work, right? I don't know if you want to answer it now or later, whatever. Yeah, if you want to answer it now, I'm going to give you a microphone just because I want to record it. Maybe we'll post this on YouTube eventually.
Hi.
If you want to step over here.
Okay.
Yep.
Mikhail of Nebadom is completely different from Jehovah.
Over here. So that you can appear in the video.
Yeah, it's a kind of vision that the people who wrote Urantia Revelation, they have this kind of vision, okay? But Urantia is completely different from all the mythologies, news we have. Mikhail of Nebadom is a particular vision of Urantia revelation. That's all. Okay.
So actually, we get that a lot. So a lot of people say, "Oh, but you're talking about Hindu mythology, but this is not what Hindu mythology says." For instance, and he's bringing new information, right? He's not confirming all the information that is being out there. His work completes or makes it easier to understand some of the other works that have happened, and so a lot of things that he brings are actually different from the stuff that is found in sacred books or mythologies, right? The concepts are a little twisted, let's put it like that, right? And after we can maybe discuss a little better about Urantia. But anyway, it began commanding several scattered parts of itself. Let's call it a him, but it didn't have any sexual gender. From him, everything in material terms originated. So he entered the creation and he was trying to manage what was going on in the creation. So this is actually the second big, really unique aspect of his work. The first is that God was not the creator of the universe, right? It was Jehovah, but Jehovah is not God. And the second is that the creation was problematic, was not done properly, right? And from these scattered parts, he started. Let's imagine today we have a body with two arms, two legs, but let's imagine our consciousness was commanding several. Like my arm was in the next room, my leg was here, my other leg was in Brazil, my head was in Australia, right? He was trying to control several different scattered parts, and eventually these parts became the first clones, or he calls angel clones, the first beings acting inside the creation along with the creator, right? On a certain occasion that he explains better in his books, one of these cloned angels tried to assault the creator. It's like my hand punched my face. The creator didn't even realize there was another consciousness living inside of his creation until this moment. So my task here is not easy because I'm trying to summarize a lot of issues in a very short time. It's going to sound a little bit crazy for those who are seeing this for the first time, but that's the idea today. Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's about the appearance of the angels.
Yeah.
Because as when the Paradrash felt in the own creation, he was like a putrefied cells, like virus and bacteria, right? And how the angels have this appearance of beautiful person, like a beautiful angel,
Yeah.
like everybody says.
Yeah. I'm going to answer to the best of my knowledge. These beings, when they were created, right, they were not created with the patterns that they present themselves today, right? They evolved over the billions of years, and today they may be more. The looks may be a little more friendly, right?
Okay.
But in the beginning, they were monstrous,
Okay.
right?
Yes,
There
it
was like
a huge virus. Right?
yeah, it was.
Huge monster.
It is even hard to describe because first of all, I don't have a specific idea, and second, it was millions of beings, millions of different kinds of beings that were being created, right? So some of them look nothing like us, right? They look more like an octopus or like an amoeba, or right, or a virus or a bacteria, something like that. But in the beginning, Ellam says that all of these scattered parts, they were extremely robotized. They more or less only acted when they were commanded by the consciousness of the creator, right? So after the attack, after the attack that the creator suffered from one of these beings, things started changing a little bit, because then we had the angel clones, and now we had a second kind of beings that emerged, and he calls them demons in his books. It doesn't mean that they are good or bad. Demons is just a different kind of species. They are different from the angel clones. The angel clones were more or less robotized, and then the demons, were more free in terms of thinking. They were all demented beings. We're talking about demented beings. We're not talking about beings that can think like we can think today. Human race is way more evolved in terms of logical thinking than these beings, believe it or not. Right? So it is very hard to imagine this scenario, but it actually explains a lot of the behavior that we found described in the mythologies when we were talking about these ancient gods, right? So just to read some of the names, we have Yahweh, the Hebrew, the Christian name, Allah, the Islamic, Amatalu, Dogon from Africa. We have Ahriman, the Zoroastrianism, Atom, the Egyptian, Brahma, Aryan Hindu, Chaos, the Greek name, Keter, the first Sephirah of Jewish Kabbalah, Yadabaoth, the blasphemer, Setian Gnostic tradition, Svarog, Slavic, Tenemu, Egyptian, because Egypt, we have 4 different mythologies in Egypt, right? This is just one of them, the Hermepolis. We have Ymir, Nordic mythology. I'm sure they're going to talk more about it in the next lecture. We have Kagen, the Bosquianamus from Africa. We have Ogni, the Celtic. We have Omama, Yanomami from Brazil. Yanomami is an Indian tribe from Brazil, right? We have Panku, Chinese, as I mentioned earlier, okay? And the list goes on and on. This is just a little bit of the list, right? But we are talking about the same being, the creator of the universe, okay? So already now we have talked a little bit about these first topics. Are we alone in this creation? Of course not. Who is the creator? Allah, Brahma, Jehovah, whatever we want to call it. The many abodes of this creation, who is the ruler? So we have already spoken about this, the many locus that exist in the anti-material side of the creation. And who is the ruler of all of these, the material side and the anti-material side? It is supposed to be Brahma, but it is only Brahma, according to Ellam? No, because Brahma is not in his full capacity, let's put it like that. He cannot rule over these, all of his creation. So we have the angels' clones, we have the demons helping him, or not helping, but ruling over certain locus, over certain areas of the creation as well. To mention a few, we have Shiva, we have Vishnu, we have Krishna, we have Odin, we have Zeus. According to Ellam, all of these beings really exist or have existed and died, and their spirit is still inside the creation. Maybe they will, I would say reincarnate, but their body is not made of meat or of flesh and blood like ours. So reincarnate is not a very good word, but maybe their spirits will occupy different bodies. Maybe they will remain in the spirituality. Who knows? Their situation is different from ours, right? When we die, our spirit, according to Ellam, occupies a different body in a next life. Usually the same kind of life, more or less. But the demons and the angel clones, first of all, they almost never die. Some of them are still alive and they are 13 billion years old, 11 billion years old, 9 billion years old. But the ones who actually have died, their spirits went somewhere else inside the creation. So they could have been left in the spirituality inside the creation, that we call erraticidade in Portuguese, right? The name in English is probably something like that. But maybe they will be born as a human being or as an extraterrestrial being in another planet. Who knows, right? So, who are the extraterrestrials? What is the link between ETs and spirits? Let's talk a little bit about that as well. Of course, everybody has a spirit, right? Every human being has a spirit. Every ET has a spirit. Every demon, every angel clone has a spirit. Everybody inside this creation has a spirit. But who created the spirit? Was it Brahma? Was it Javert or Allah as well? According to Allan, no. The spirits are created in different ways. Some were created before the Big Bang, old spirits, and some are created along the way. As the universe develops itself, life emerges, and spiritual cells are given to occupy these material portions of things, right? Because a tree has a spirit, a dog has a spirit, a zebra, a bacteria, right? A human being has a spirit. So everything that exists in the material and the anti-material side of the creation has a spiritual component that gives itself to a structure this this form inside the creation. So this is the link between ETs and spirits. A lot of people confuse these topics. They say, no, extraterrestrials are spirits of people that have already died and now are living on other planets, or they say all kinds of stuff, right? According to Ellam, spirits are behind all kinds of life, all sorts of forms that exist inside the creation. And the creator didn't even know about the spiritual component until very recently. So he's not the one who generates the spirits, right? He didn't even know spirits existed until very recent, right? So moving on, we have the extraterrestrials and we have the extraphysicals. The extraterrestrials are different civilizations inside the material universe. I'm going to explain it a little better. But the extra-physical would be those living in the anti-material universe. We are not talking about spirits. All of them have a spirit behind their form, right? But inside the universe, we have these two kinds of existence, let's put it like that. We have the ETs that visit us from different planets inside the material universe, and we have the extra-physical that travel through portals, visiting different parts of the creation through portals, right? So, when, body type, how many, an example, just to make it easier. The extraterrestrials emerged in the last billion years. Remember that I mentioned that in the first 6 or 7 billion years of the creation, after the creation, life only existed in the Brahmaloka, in the anti-material universe. So the extra-physical ones emerged in the first 6 billion years. The extraterrestrials emerged much later, only in the last billion years, after what Allan calls Town Project, that made life come from one side to the other. Body type. The extraterrestrials are mostly biological. The extra-physicals, their body is made of plasma. It's something different, right? It's not biologicals. So David Grush is probably talking about the recovery of extraterrestrial beings. The extra-physical ones, like Zeus, Odin, these beings, they are not made of matter, or their bodies are not biological, right? Allan calls them cloned angels and demons. Okay, again, demons are not good or bad. This is just something that came with the Catholic Church, right? So, how many? We are talking here about several races, like millions of races living inside the material side. And what about the extra physical ones? Also, millions of different races. Okay? Example, the biblical Nephilim or the Anunnaki is an example of extraterrestrials. We have Syrianus, in English it's probably something similar, right? We have Arcturianus. We have a lot of examples that came from the side of the creation. And the extra physical ones, Odin, Zeus, Krishna, Shiva, Vishnu, many, right? All of their sons and daughters, right? They are all extra physical beings. The problem is that they all converged to Earth. When life appeared on Earth, more or less, as we saw already in previous slides, about 3.4 billion years ago, when life emerged here, a lot of extraterrestrial beings and a lot of extra physical beings were together here on Earth, right? Checking out what was going on and conducting experiments. So, what is going to be the first official contact with ETs, and how Jan Val Ellam believes it's going to happen? According to Ellam, and he's been saying that for over 20 years, one day we will look at the sky and we will see a big spaceship uh, parked more or less in the same distance as the moon is, so we cannot attack through missiles, and at the same time we'll feel safe because it's very far, right? I mean, it'll be crazy, but at least it won't be like Independence Day right on top of our heads, right? They'll be on a station in a safe distance. Let's put it like that. But the same way the whole planet can see the moon, the whole planet will be able to see this spaceship because it's a huge spaceship. It's more or less the size of the moon. So it's going to be a big spaceship parked in a safe distance, and it will remain there for some hours. On the first official contact, there will probably not be a message or an exchange of communication. They will just show themselves there. But there will be a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth, and the process will start from there, right? Eventually, there will be some sort of communication. They will introduce themselves. They will explain a little bit about their knowledge of things the way they are. Because, again, according to Ellam, they do not compose a group that is organized, right? You have several different agendas. We have several different races. Each race has the possibility of understanding one certain aspect of the puzzle, right? But who is going to be ruling this moment? According to Ellam, it's going to be a being called Sophia, or it has many different names. We could say Sophia, just
Michael of Lebanon is the same, right?
Michael of Demodon, or Hokma, right? We have several different names as well. But this being that was created 6 or 7 billion years ago, his role in the universe is to be the ruler of the material side of the universe. And he's the one that is going to present himself first in the first official contact, according to Ellam. Yes.
There are unofficial contact happening now. I say that because in 2010 I had a first contact with Grace, and I think about it. What, who I am, what the interest
In you, right?
in myself.
Yeah.
Who I am, what I did,
Yeah.
my
Every
importance. Yeah.
every human being is extremely important to them, because all of the human beings, I mean, even the most stupid one that you can think of, he can understand things, he can question things, he has DNA with the potential to help all the previous civilizations of the universe. And we don't know who we were in previous lives. So maybe you were one gray in previous lives, and today you are a human being, but these grays are checking you out and learning with you and using your eyes as their television in their plans. Who knows, right? All of these scenarios are possibles, are possibilities, right? We don't know, but
Official contact.
it is what I'm calling official contact is the first time that the whole world will see it together,
Because right now,
right?
I can't say that for another people because I'm
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Some people say no, he's lying, he's crazy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this is not official. It is official for you because it happened with you, right? But it's not official for the whole
I
planet,
have no clue.
right? Yeah.
For me,
So what I'm calling official is this. Of course, several governments already have contact with foreign civilizations, right? Paul Hanier said that U.S. government keeps 4 different races in bases, and but at the same time, the communication with these beings is a challenge, right? They don't understand things properly. They don't communicate properly, right?
yeah.
So it's the governments, they don't know what is going on. They are trying to understand. They are probably hiding a lot of information from the public, but they don't really know what's going on. They don't understand how one race can be technologically evolved and it cannot answer simple questions at the same time,
Yeah.
right? So they don't understand the dementia aspect of these beings. Because they are technologically more evolved than us. So they would think they would be evolved in all of the aspects, right? So they don't really understand what is going on. Yes.
Rodrigo, just to make a little bit clear.
Yeah.
The first official contact that you're talking about will be the what the church describes, the Christian church describes as the second coming.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then that will be
Yeah.
like official for the
Yeah. Exactly. Well, the church says it's going to be the return of Jesus Christ,
exactly.
right? The
Yeah,
second
that's the
coming
second
of
coming.
Jesus Christ, right?
Just
But yeah,
the Vatican.
if you
How
want
can
to
I say Vatican in English?
Vatican.
The Vatican, yesterday, they offered to the press a manual teaching how what do you have to do when you if you have a kind of contact with extraterrestrial beings.
Yeah.
The Vatican, they are teaching to the Catholic people what to do when they find, if they have a
If they
kind
wake
of
up and see the
contact.
spaceships
Yeah.
on the skies, how should they
I
behave?
saw it in the news yesterday.
Yeah, a lot of things are happening, right? NASA is also making public statements about their studies. Of course, they are hiding information, right? But at least now they are coming forward saying that they are studying things, right? They have put a group of scientists, priests of all religions. They're trying to figure it out as well. They should read your books, by the way. But anyway, so this is how Jan Val Ellam believes it's going to happen. Okay, it's going to be more or less like that. The whole planet's going to stop because there will be spaceships all around in the skies, right? It'll be a big mess, right? But then they'll go away,
Yeah, because
right?
they're afraid of
Yeah,
us.
they'll simply go away, and we will have to discuss among ourselves what is going on, who are they, but at least we will know that we are not alone anymore. So this is going to change everything, right? You want to say
And
something?
it's not just a question of belief or not. Sophia told me more than five times that will be the first official contact, exactly the way Rodrigo is telling you now. So it's not a question of belief.
Yeah, it's not just your
The more,
impression, it's
yeah,
what you have been told by
yeah.
beings, right? Basically.
But, for example, I think I'm the only one person in my town that I think I could understand, but how can you have other people?
Yeah. How
Because
can
I
Indians
think,
from
you
a
know,
tribe in
French
South
people
Africa?
are very pragmatic people,
Yeah.
and they even don't believe in Allan Kardec.
Yeah, they
So nobody
yeah,
talks about
yeah.
it. So
I mean,
I
your
talk to myself every day. I talk to myself because I don't have anyone to talk about it. So
yeah,
okay, how can I explain my husband? You know,
yeah.
I was abducted. I have a lot of experience.
Experiences. Yeah,
Everybody has.
yeah.
Anyway, but okay, how can I tell
But
someone about
the thing is,
nobody believe it. They just you. Okay.
yeah, but
You know, this Brazilian girl is a little bit weird, so don't
no,
talk
no.
to her.
But this issue is very is to everyone, right? Not everybody will understand it. Some people will probably think the world is going to collapse. It's going to be the Armageddon, the end of some people will relate to Independence Day. They say, oh, okay, now we're going to be invaded by aliens. Some tribes in Africa will look and maybe they will be
Understand.
understanding it better than most of us. Who knows, right? So, but one thing that he says in his speeches is that we will feel their energy, and we will more or less be calmed down a little bit, right? So that we don't go too crazy all of a sudden,
Because I'm
right?
just a little bit in a weird
Yeah.
situation because when I talked about it with my husband, who is the closest person I have around
Yeah,
me,
it's hard.
it's hard for
Yeah.
him, and he doesn't believe what happened to me since I was a child.
Yeah,
And I was traumatized about it. I had a very difficult childhood because of what happened.
it's hard.
Yes,
It's
so,
hard.
Sometimes, and I always tell him, one day you understand when he comes back, when you see something, because I saw already. I show him, but he doesn't believe it. If he have a picture, he doesn't.
I mean,
Anyway,
yeah,
So he's my closest person I
Yeah.
have. So anyway, and always I tell him, I know he's coming one day you see. So I'm in this kind of situation.
It's
He
a-
say,
it's a
okay,
dilemma."
He's just she just believes, but and nothing's gonna happen.
that's why we don't. I personally don't talk about this with
Yes, I
Nobody. I only talk about it in these events that we organize, you know. But not on my day-to-day life, I only talk about futile things. I don't talk about it because nobody's ready for this kind of talk yet.
Yes, but
right?
sorry for cut you.
No,
your
no,
speech.
it's all
I need
good.
to talk to you because I have nobody to talk about. But what happened? It was recently. Actually, it was about 3 years ago. Happened something to me. But it's always when I'm alone. When he's with me, nothing happens.
Yeah,
When I'm alone, something happens.
yeah.
And after I try to tell him because he sees that I'm really weird, and
If I would have given up already. I wouldn't even try.
yeah,
I mean,
because it's quite traumatized.
yeah, I mean,
Traumatized.
the most of the people will only believe in things that happened with them, right? They have their own experiences and they have their own conclusions about things based on the experience they have, right? So if they never saw a spaceship, if they never saw an alien, if they never saw a spirit, they won't believe it. But some other people, they they even if they haven't seen them, they will study things and they will, okay, I'm probably not just made of flesh and blood, so there's probably a spirit here. Okay, a lot of people see spirits and see, so that probably spirits exist. So some people will analyze things a little deeper and they will have better conclusions. But most people, they will simply just not believe. They prefer to believe in an invisible God that is behind controlling everything, right? They prefer to believe that God sent his son to die for us and to clean our sins with his blood. You know, all of these crazy stories are, for me, are even more, even harder to believe than these that I'm saying now. But a lot of people believe in it, so I have to respect. I have to understand.
Do you mind ringing my bell in my door?
So that my husband can see you.
Because it's easier, and I won't be afraid because some people doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it doesn't never.
Yes.
So let's say hypothetically that this first contact happens in a few months,
Okay.
and there might be an exchange, right? We will kind of have something to offer to them, and they will probably offer technology or other things as well. It is so Alon was saying that the Vatican already gave some instructions. So
Yes.
there probably it's going to be first a little bit confusing in the beginning, but just to connect to the previous point of the unofficial contact, is there a difference between the beings who are unofficially contacting humans and this first Sophia and its
Oh yeah.
maybe you can
Yeah, I'm going to repeat a little bit of your question just to make sure the audio got it. But that brings us to the second point, right? The possible scenarios after the first official contact, right? So your question was, is there a difference between the the people who are behind the civilizations who are behind the first official contact and the ones that have visited us in the past and are still visiting us today behind the scenes, right? In the Vatican, in the government. Is there a difference between them? Yes, there is, right? And the second aspect of your question was, will there be an exchange? What can we offer them and what can they offer us? Technology, right? So let's talk a little bit about this. The races that crash here on Earth, their spaceship crashes here on Earth, they are different from the ones that are going to be behind the first official contact, right? If you think, how come one spaceship travels from a distant planet all across the universe and then hits a mountain and crashes here on Earth? How is this possible, right? Well, there are possible scenarios for this to happen. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe they threw a spaceship on purpose to be recovered by humankind so they can watch and learn and analyze how are we going to deal with that, right? Everything is possible, right? He was talking about grays. Grays are mostly extraterrestrials from this material side of the universe. There are 1,000 different species of grays, right? Each with their own knowledge, with their own capacities, right? So they don't, they not all of them understand what is going on. They just understand that they cannot appear publicly yet because somebody in a higher position on a celestial hierarchy doesn't allow them to do so. Maybe that's the case. I'm just saying maybe because we cannot be certain. We cannot say, okay, this is like this is like that. We are just trying to figure it out together, right? But the simple answer would be yes. We're talking about several different agendas, right? Some of these civilizations, they are just trying to understand things as we are, but they didn't have a Jesus Christ on their planet. They didn't have a Buddha or a Krishna. Their story of their planet is completely different, and they are just analyzing and trying to understand based on what is going on here, because their possibilities are different. So we don't really know, right? What we know is, or what we think we know, is that it is completely different agendas. And the agenda of the people, of the races that are behind the first official contact, right, is the agenda of Sophia. So it's a different agenda, right? Sophia is not doing this for us. They have to consider the demon's necessity, the cloned angel's necessity, the Anunnaki's necessities, the earthlings' necessities, their own necessity, right? And they are all demented. So it's not easy to understand what is going on in their minds. Although they are technologically developed, because they are flying over here, so that means they are technologically developed way more than us, right? But their mental capacities is completely different and probably below ours, right? Yes.
I'm just trying to think. It seems like there is the common aspect of all these different races across the material world is that they are not. It seems that they're not allowed to disclose this whole thing themselves. So who is that decision? How do they agree on that aspect to not officially to the world disclose?
It's the
As they have different agendas, why can't one just say, "Do you know what? I'm just gonna do it."
is the empire of the strongest. Let's put it like that, right?
Yeah.
So who decides? The most powerful ones. And if the most powerful ones say it is not time yet, if you show yourself there against our command, we will destroy you, they don't come. Or if they are robotized, like the bees, for instance, the animals, the insects, the bees. The queen bee commands, all the other bees obey, right? So the question is, who is behind this? It is Sophia, right? According to Ellam, the one who decides when to come, when this first official contact will take place, is Sophia. And why it hasn't yet happened beats me, right? If I were Sophia, I would probably have already done this, right? But
Probably a problem between Sophia and Krishna. believe it or not. Sophia is the ruler of this universe. Krishna is actually nowadays.
the actual,
Sophia is the ruler of our neighbor universe.
the antimaterial one.
Krishna is the ruler of the antimaterial universe. Krishna and many others.
Yeah,
they are
archons.
living in a dispute about the suzerainty.
Yeah, they are
To be the
fighting over
ruler.
who is the most powerful one,
So
who should be the ruler, who should be presenting themselves or not.
what
They
is the terrible face of this problem? Our neighbor universe is collapsing, and they will not have time to adjust, to make a kind of pact. So Sophia is waiting for something reasonable coming from them to decide, and we're living the end of the end of the end of these days, right?
I mean, it's a hard question, right? It's a hard answer as well. It's the best one we can give today, but all of these issues that they are very logical. Why why they just don't show up? And okay, let's talk about things. They don't think like we do, right? And now coming back to his question, what can we offer them, and what will they offer us? Technology, right? Of course, we think like that, but they don't necessarily think like that, right? They may be able to exchange technology with us. Most of the technology that we have came from them, and we just don't know. But all of these secret programs, studying the spaceships and studying things that they have recovered, have developed our own technology today, and we just don't know. The public doesn't know about this, right? And what can we offer them? Our DNA is very precious. Our DNA is the most recent DNA in the universe, in the creation. Homo sapiens is only 200,000 years old, more or less, 300,000 years old. And our DNA is the result of 13.7 billion years of evolution in terms of DNA. So the most recent species in the universe are more evolved than the old ones in terms of DNA, right? Their DNA is more problematic than ours. Ours is 95% deactivated. Let's put it like that, right? So it's hard to answer just like that. But if I were to give you a simple answer and a fast answer, it would be this one. They want our DNA. They want to understand our DNA, to use it to make their DNA better. That's why you see so many cases of abduction of cows, people. They're studying the DNA, right?
So our biology and chemistry knowledge,
our biology,
to diplomatically solve this by exchanging information,
probably,
maybe getting technology from them.
Yeah, especially because Allan says all the time that our DNA is only good for them if we give them. If they simply take, it doesn't really work. No? Sometimes, if you do a surgery and you have an organ that is implanted in your body rejects that organ. Sometimes that's the best analogy. If they take our DNA, if they abduct us and kidnap us and they want to use it, it doesn't really work well. But if we offer it and we are trying to help, then in that case, it might actually work. So it has to be, it is hard because it involves several different aspects, but it has to be something along those lines. The truth has to be something along those lines. You know? What they have to offer us: technology, knowledge. Of course, if they are older than us, they have probably seen a lot of things that we have not. So they probably have experiences and things that it would be interesting for us to understand. But basically, I would say this: they want our DNA and they want our capability of understanding things. The reasoning of these beings is not as good as the reasoning of the humankind, because we are the most recent species. The mythology says that when the gods saw our species, they were amazed, say, oh, they are smarter than us. They have more potential than us. They became jealous of us, right? The mythology says some things like along those lines, right? So I would say this: they want our DNA and they want our reasoning, and we want their technology and we want to know their experiences, right? We want to figure out stuff, right? Not all of these races have this curiosity of understanding things. Some some of them are some of those races are completely robotized. They don't question things, they only act, right? There's a problem, I need to go from this point to this point, doesn't matter anything else, that's my goal, that's all they think about, right? So it's hard, but it is something like that. So the possible scenarios, and now we are approaching the end, the possible scenarios after the first official contact is for each of us to imagine. Imagine tomorrow we wake up and we look at the sky, all the news on all the TVs are pointing, are showing the spaceships, right? And then they simply go away. What is the scenario after the first official contact? What is the Catholic Church is going to say? A lot of people are going to believe in what the Pope says. Even if the Pope doesn't understand a thing about what is going on, he's going to have to say something. What about the President of the United States? He's going to have to say something, right? What about the President of China, of Brazil, or Russia? What about the Islamic leader? What about the leader of that tribe in Africa? Everybody's going to, all the authorities, they will have to say something to the best of their knowledge. And we are going to start, okay, figuring things out. Okay, this makes sense. This does not make sense. This, maybe this guy is right. Maybe he knows what he's talking about. Maybe that guy knows what he's talking about. So we're going to be a little lost trying to understand things. But one thing is certain. We will all know that we are not alone in the universe. And this is going to change everything. Science will have different milestones to think from now on, right? Religions will also have to adapt their speech, right? And remember, this is only the first visit. There will be a second, a third. One day it will be normal to coexist with all these races. A lot of these phenomena that we see in the skies regarding the UAPs are from the extra-physical races that are trying to come to this side of the creation, because the anti-material side of the creation is falling apart, according to Ellam. So they are trying to invade the material side of creation, right? And they already did, right? So it's so hard to look at everything and imagine, but there will be a time for the second visit, a third visit. Eventually, there will be some kind of communication. Eventually, they will probably figure out, oh, okay, Jan Val Ellam knew about this all along. it's there in his books. Or no, this has nothing to do with what Jan Val Ellam was saying. Jan Val Ellam was wrong. This guy here was right, or that guy, or the Bible is actually right, or and then 50 years from now, or 50 years from the moment when this contact happens, 100 years, 200, who knows? One day we will have a better understanding of the whole picture, right? I will let her, and then I'll give.
And what about what happened at Miami's shopping center? I think it was the beginning of January.
Yeah, the Miami
Yeah,
shopping
because
center.
everybody was crazy in the streets, and a lot of police cars and a lot of police.
Yeah.
And after there was a policeman that said, "Oh, it's nothing. There was no ET." Maybe they say, "Oh, it's a meteorological balloon."
Yeah.
Very huge
It's always a balloon, right?
Yes, always balloon, and nothing happens. Everything is in our eyes, and it's all nothing happens. And what was that? It was real because.
In my opinion, that's my perspective.
Yeah.
It was something that came from the extra physical universe to this universe,
Because
right?
it was like
A portal opening up. Yeah.
I think I don't know if someone saw that.
Yeah, it was all over the news. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like a
Transparent body, right? Yeah.
White body.
Yeah.
And everybody said, "Oh, it's
I mean, who knows? It can be. I wasn't there, right? So I cannot say for sure, but I find it very strange that all the police was there just because some shooting was going on between some teenagers or something like this. It is just too much, right? So something weird happened there. But situations like that have happened all along, right? Roswell in 1947 was the first strange case that we know of. But even before Roswell, all along the history, things like that have happened. The only difference is that today we all have our social medias, we all have our cell phones, right? So things are a little harder to hide, right? Genilza.
My question is, so I was thinking, because there are portals already opened, and the other ones can come in, go back and forth, whatever, appear as they did in Miami or whatever they're doing. But I'm thinking about something more even stupid that I could say. How about in a bad, very worst scenario, Krishna wins the fight?
I wouldn't be able to answer that, but let's imagine that he does.
Yeah.
Eventually, somebody's going to have to be showing up, even if it's not Sophia, even if it's somebody else who wins a fight with Sophia and destroys Sophia. Eventually, somebody is going to be behind one first official contact, because they will not be just flying the skies and hiding forever, right? One day there will be an official contact, right? And a lot of people say, okay, but aren't you afraid that they're going to invade us or destroy us? Personally, I am not, because it doesn't matter if I am afraid of or not. It doesn't matter if I'm talking about this or not. It's going to happen no matter what, right? And if they wanted to destroy us, they would have done. Movies like Independence Day, they are just stupid, right? If they want to destroy us, all they have to do is diverge some rocks, some meteors. They don't even have to come. They just, okay, let me switch the direction of this meteor. Boom. And they would throw rocks at us and destroy the planet from a distance.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense to come here and fight us with guns and
They are already doing it.
yeah.
Like,
So
I'm not gonna bother.
yeah, right. So the scenario that I imagine is more or less this, Sophia decides to come back. So I'm saying to come back because I won't have time to explain it now, but the same spirit that is behind Sophia or Hokma was behind Jesus, right? This story is way more, has a lot more details than we are just mentioning here. And it has nothing to do with religion. I am not Catholic. I'm not Protestant. I don't have any religion. I just try to understand things, and I try to analyze what makes sense for me or doesn't, right? But yeah, this is more or less what I had for you today, right? I can't go much deeper because it involves reading a whole bunch of books, a whole bunch of speeches, and if you wanna check out my book, this is the QR code. You can buy it on Amazon. There are many books of Ellam available on Amazon in Portuguese, in English, in Spanish, in French, in Italian. There are some books. And I also would recommend, if you speak Portuguese, go to orbum.com.br, ROBUM, orbum.com.br. Check it out. Most of his speeches are there. And also his YouTube channel, Jan Val Ellam on YouTube. In English, we have the Cosmic Reintegration YouTube channel with some material in English, but it's only the first steps. I'm sure along the coming months or years, we will be able to have more of his work in other languages. Yes, let's now stop for a quick break. You can we have some snacks over here, right? So feel free to have some snacks. And in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we come back for Allan and Morsi. They are going to give a speech about the Norse mythology, okay? Thanks, guys.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm happy to have everyone here. And this is, well, the second year that we're coming to Ireland, and we're presenting the works of Jan Val here. As Rodrigo mentioned, we already have some books translated to English and to other languages. And we're trying to start a small group of studies here and people that would like to continue developing the subjects of the cosmic revelation that he's already been doing in Brazil for 30 years now. So this is an attempt of starting this group, of starting a nucleus of people here that would like to study a little bit more about this here. Doesn't necessarily have to be in English. We can also try to do some of this in Portuguese too, but we are trying to develop a little bit more the English language and bring this to other people, other countries that don't have access to Portuguese or understand Portuguese. So we're trying to develop that. So in that attempt today, we're going to be covering a subject that for the people here of Ireland and the islands here is very dear to them, which is the Celtic and Norse mythologies. So we're going to be going back and forth a little bit, as Rodrigo mentioned before too in his lecture. It's going to be very informal. If you have any questions or you'd like to ask anything, just lift your hand and we'll welcome your questions and try to answer them as best as we can. And Ila and I will try to go back and forth here with different subjects, and he might complement a little bit of what I'm saying. I might complement a little bit of what he's saying. So there's nothing really structured here. We're just going to try to go a little bit through the different topics that we have. We have a few slides where, as Rodrigo mentioned, we can send them to you afterwards. We're putting together a small group with WhatsApp so everybody can receive the information and have our contacts there too. So we're going to go, we'll read them for you, and we'll go explaining some extra details that are not in the actual slides to give a little bit more context. So in the beginning, Ilan will start talking a little bit about where this mythology came from, the origins of the Celtic and Norse mythologies, and the beings that made part of this group of beings that ended up coming here to Ireland, to Scotland, and to other areas of the world like Siberia, Alaska, the northern countries closer to the North Pole. So, if you would like to...
Okay, thank you. The first thing we have to try to realize, talking about biological context, is that if we are going to talk about the last 50, 60,000 years, everything began to happen in a place that in the mythology is called Hyperborean. Many of us talk about Atlantis, Atlantida, but Hyperborean is the most important history and the most important focus of mythological news. So, Hyperborean, for us today, it looks like a store. It looks like the myth, but is a kind of reality that we do not have the capacity to understand, because it's a kind of life completely different if we compare as we live today. But many news about this strange way of living on Earth, many news about people in those Hyperborean series called Elixoia, Phidias, Glorias, Findias, Múrias, strange names, but they had their sacred cities. And the news about these or those cities are considered today as mythology. But it was, or you can call it history. But we're talking here about unknown history that today we don't have anything more to remember about those facts than the manuscripts, the books that we call today mythology. So what we understand as Celtic mythology and Nordic mythology and many others mythologies, all of this came from Hyperborean facts, Hyperborean days, right? So Celtic and Nordic mythologies, they came from Hyperborean. The sad thing to realize today is that the Ireland people and Scotland people, they don't know many things about their ancestral history. They lost the, how can I say, the link with the past. So we are going to try to present to you some facts, some news, some mythology news about those mythologies, Celtic and Nordic mythology, right?
We were speaking earlier today about this, and Allan mentioned something that was interesting, is that after religion started to become more the main in the different cultures, little by little, they started to extinguish the information from the past because it wasn't interesting for them to have gods from before, heroes from before, and things like that. So he gave the example of the Trojan War, and he said that was mythology. We would study that and see this didn't happen. Achilles never existed until they found the city. And then suddenly, what was mythology became reality. We had information from, sources from before, oral sources, that everybody thought was mythology, until we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, where then you open up a whole new universe of information from the time of Jesus and the apostles that everybody thought was legend and myth. So a lot of the information that we're going to try to bring today was brought down for a long time through oral tradition. They didn't have a way of writing a lot of this information 10, 15,000 years ago. But the stories were there. That was their truth. That was their past. And over time, a lot of that was vanished. We can still find some literature here and there of people that were able to collect these informations and write them down, but a lot of it was lost. So as he was saying, a lot of the people that live today here in Ireland and Scotland and England revere this information as myths from the past, legends of, fairies and all these different things, when in fact this was reality for these people a long time ago. So we're going to start now, but just wanted to point out that a lot of things that today we still might think are legends and myths, we might in the near future discover more information about it.
So we are going to talk about Hyperborean news, context, location, and historical references. We are going to talk about many Hyperborean facts that humanity never knew or simply forgot. We're going to talk about Celtic mythology, Nordic mythology, and about Ragnarok, because it's very important to understand what happened at the time of the Ragnarok. So, beginning our lecture, we are going to talk about Hyperborea, and this is the one, Phaetheus, or how can I say in English? Phaetheus, someone who lived at this time. He was a navigator, a geographer, astronomer, and the first Greek to visit and describe the British Isles and the Atlantic coast of Europe. Though his main work on the ocean is lost, something is known of his venture through the Greek historian Polybius. So this man, he was one of at that time, they talked about Hyperborean lands. And we are talking about 300, the 4th and 3rd century before Christ. But Hyperborean lands at the time of Phaetheus, they do not exist anymore. So here, Phaetheus, in your life of navigator and many others, at the time of the Greek culture, they talked about Hyperborean lands. He visited some northern European countries, and he also told of Thule. Thule is another name of Hyperborean. The Norway people, the Sweden people, called Thule. The northmost inhabited island, 6 days sails from northern Britain and extending at least to the Arctic Circle. The region he visited may have been Iceland and or Norway, where he got information about some people who lived in northernmost ancestral lands that do not exist anymore. So just to give more information, let's talk about Elixoia, because the city of Elixoia on the island of the same name, possibly the Danish sea land, it's a kind of rastro, how can I say this?
Trace.
Trace of this lost and forgotten past. Hyperborean Island, which reinforces the idea that Hyperborea referred to Denmark, the Scandinavian peninsula, several islands, and Great Britain, and others that disappeared in that region. Is Hyperborean Island. It was located north of Europe and Asia. So just to give us a view, if you look here, we have Greenland, we have Iceland, Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Finland. Today, the North Pole is water, but 14,000 years ago, 13,000 years ago, we had Hyperborean land or Hyperborean island. Near Hyperborean, we have Elixoia, another island, and many others islands that today we don't have them anymore. Because everything that we call Hyperborean today, there is nothing to see anymore. So, in accordance to the news of this strange past, we had a trouble in the crust of Earth, and our planet made a movement. So, in this movement, all of these lands fall down, sank, and some people or some peoples survived, and they came from here to they came to Ireland, Scotland, Siberia, and let's see here. They came to Ireland, they came to Scotland, they came to Ireland, that's here, they came to Siberia, they came to Alaska. The Eskimos that live today in Alaska, they are
Distant
descends from these people who lived before in Hyperborean lands. And the mythologists call these people Tuatha de Danann. So, we'll see.
The shift that occurred with the planets wasn't overnight. This happened over a period of time. So while this was happening, the people that lived in this areas realized that they had to leave there. The same way that today we know that events are happening and we need to move from one location to the other. They started to leave the mainland, which they called home for thousands of years, and they started to descend to different areas that today are still present, as he mentioned. Alaska, the north part of Siberia, the peninsula here where Britain is. And one of these people, one of these beings are, which here in Ireland are called the Tuatha of Danann. They were just one of the many different tribes or people that lived, which was the ancient Hyperborean lands. And they all descended to these different areas around 12,000 years ago, more or less. Now, this has nothing to do with the biblical flood. This was much later. We're talking about a lot longer.
The biblical flood took place 9,000 years ago, okay? We were talking about 13,000 years ago.
And this wasn't a flood. It was actually a shift on the Earth's crust, which replaced certain areas with others. You have a question?
Yes, what is the relation to the Hyperboreans and Lemuria? Elaxia, the Lemurians?
Lemuria was something, or was a kind of land that we can talk about its histories going 100,000 years ago.
So way.
Lemuria or Mu, it's their histories are older, more ancestral than Hyperborean histories, right? Yeah. If we don't have a kind of map here to show Lemuria, but if we imagine the south of India, we have Sri Lanka, an island that is near from the India continent. Lemuria was located
South from there.
south from India. Lemuria was called Samurakandan. How is the name in English? The tradition Kandan. Yeah. So Lemuria has perhaps more than 200,000 years of histories. Part of them, Blavatsky found something about Lemuria, or many things about Lemuria, when she went to Nepal, Tibet, how can I say Tibet in English?
Nepal.
Tibet, and looked for some kind of manuscripts and things written in kinds of woods, and they have the monkeys, the Tibet monkeys. They have until today many things about Mu and Lemuria. Kumari Kanda is the name of the tradition that was in Lemuria. So it's older than Hyperborean histories.
Yes, so Lemuria was older, and there are a lot of people that believe that people from Atlantis came to Ireland as well, including Rudolf Steiner, for example.
Yeah.
So, where is the Hyperborean? Because I've heard a lot about Hyperborean, but I don't know in the timeline. Is it before, after, or in the same time of Atlantis fall, or?
Atlantis, as I think I know, it's another history. It's a particular history. Kumari Kanda or Lemuria is one thing, Hyperborean other thing, and Atlantis another one. Okay? Atlantis, as we call today, we think we are talking about one island, one city, or one emperor. But it looks like that we are the Atlantis emperor that existed during the last 20,000 years. Okay, it was a realm that include more than 12 or 13 bases or cities, and we have some of them in Atlantic Ocean, others in Mediterranean Sea. Okay, so we had Hyperborean in the Pacific Ocean, Lemurian Pacific Ocean, Hyperborean in the North Atlantic, and Atlantis and its spreads in part of the not North Atlantic, but Atlantic near the equator and Mediterranean and many other bases. Our history is completely different. But we don't have today any kind of sureless
Assurance.
certainty, because each scholar thinks they know everything about Atlantis, they know everything about Lemuria. So only our descendants, our sons and daughters, and in future, another human generation will know everything about Atlantis, about Hyperborean, about Kumarikandan tradition. But it's completely different. In the 3 books I wrote, called Terra Atlantis Trilogy, I try to discover some of the bases of the Atlantis Empire in accordance to the understanding of Biodemo people, or people who came from Lucifer's rebellion. Because the name Atlantis, Atlan, these names belong to a particular culture that's completely different from Hyperborean culture, Kumarikandan culture. So Atlantis is another.
Basically, they coexisted at the same
They coexist at the same
In
time
different
during many, many years.
One thing that we mention a lot with the cosmic revelation is that in the near future, we expect to have more contact. After what Rodrigo mentioned about the official contact, and as we have more access to beings from other planets or dimensions, actually here from Earth, when he mentions it's in the future, we're going to know more about this, is probably because we're going to interact again with the same beings that are still here, that used to live in these places, and then we'll be able to have more certainties that we have today, where we kind of have to be careful what we say. We're probably going to have more information when we're able to interact with these beings, but that's probably going to happen in the near future, not right now. So this is a beginning of a seed of information that will probably only grow in the near future when we actually have more contact with these beings.
If I could tell you anything more, I will tell you that the Hyperborean history was good, was decent, or something like that. The Atlantis history was completely crazy, because it involves many, many kind of peoples, some of them biological people, others extra-physical peoples. And the strangest of them all was what really happened in the Kumarikandan tradition. Because at that time, we'll have to talk about Rakshasas, we are talking about monsters, we're talking about some kind of biological hybrid beings that took the blood of the mammals. So it's very, very, a very, very sad history.
She has a question over there.
All those shifts that Earth goes through, either in Lemuria or Hyperborea, is just a part of Earth, not the whole of it.
No, the crust, you mean? Could you
No,
repeat?
yes, because you said that Hyperborean, there was a change in the form, in the geography.
Yeah,
Because the
correct.
Earth did like this.
Yeah, the crust moved a little bit back then, but this small displacement of land and water was enough to make these islands sink.
Okay, but
So-
only in that area or throughout the planet or whatever?
throughout the planet.
Throughout the planet. So there would have been changes throughout.
Yes.
Everything.
Mhm.
Today we have elephantis,
Mammoths.
mammoths, that we found mammoths in
Siberia.
Siberia, and they are with grass in their stomach, but there are no grass to be eaten at that time because there is no grass, or there was no grass. And so how can the animals have grass in their stomach? The explanation is that we have in our planet, in the center of our planet, we have the nucleus that is composed by iron and nickel. We have involved in this solid part of the earth a mantle with magma, and above the magma we have the surface that we are living on surface, and this surface has 18, 20 until 80 kilometers. So we call crust. The geology knows that we have 15 or 16 tecton plates that they move over the metals. And the professor Charles Hapgood wrote a book, and Einstein at his time said Charles Hapgood was right. And Charles Hapgood explained that 15,000 years ago, there was too much ice in the both poles of Earth, and something, planet, probably Nibiru, in its trajectory passed near Earth. So it was some kind of
Unbalance in the pool.
gravitational pull. So the crust, like casca de laranja,
The skin of an orange.
just the casca of a laranja, skin of an orange, moved. So in this movement, there was a mammoth that was living in a tropical climate with grass, with very good eat, and the land where the mammoth lived became a land near the North Pole. So the grass was over, ice covered everything, and the mammoth died, but with his stomach full of. So this is what Professor Charles Hapgood explained in his book, right? So it took all the planet. So let's continue. It's another way of see the parts of Hyperborean land, Ellipsoia, and again, today we have nothing here, right? So here is Ireland. Here is Scotland. Here is Iceland. Here is Alaska. Here is Siberian. Here is the north of the Scandinavian. And people from there, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk now about the Tuatha De Danann, name of the people who before lived in this sacred cities called Findus, Fídias, Golas, Múrias, and Ellipsoia, and they arrived here, arrived here, arrived here, arrived here, and that's what we're going to talk now.
Remember that that
please.
was one of the species of beings that lived there. There weren't the only ones, but we're going to talk about them, but there was many different beings living there with different names. So the historical references for this are the sons of Odin and Aaron. In the ancient Greek and Roman worlds, Pliny and Herodotus, as well as Virgil and Cyr, referred to the Hyperborean people as ancient humans. Apollo was venerated there. Theseus and Perseus were there also. So as we can see back in, as he had already mentioned before, in Greece and in Rome, this information was already there. It was present. There was something that they used to talk about, that they had history about, and they even mentioned some of the gods that were present at these locations. Now, again, we need to remember that beings like Apollo are not from our material universe. These are beings from the extra material universe, as Rodrigo had mentioned before, which at this time had portals that were able to come and go back and forth from the different realms. So he would be with the Olympians in that universe, and he was able to come over here. And from the news that we have, he actually liked that region very much. It was a very pleasant region. The temperature was very nice. He enjoyed staying there when he came to Earth. So he was a person who participated in some of the reunions, the gatherings, the meetings. He was very interested in knowing what the people were talking about, the subjects of the day. So it was very interesting and rich information that unfortunately over time was lost.
Yeah, and just to realize a very good understanding, we are talking about Odin and adding, because the people who lived in Ireland at that time, and we're talking about 14, 15,000 years ago, called themselves as Erin's son. And the people who lived in Scotland called themselves Odin's sons, right? So this is why we are talking about these two names.
Main Hyperborean facts that humanity has forgotten or never became aware of. The story of the transition from hybrid Hyperborean beings to Homo Milesians, the fire of Prometheus. So this is the first time that we have knowledge of, or we have information of, that actual human beings, biological human beings, interacted and saw the species that lived in the Hyperborean lands that were now living in Ireland, which were hybrid. They were not fully biological. So the Milesians they used to live in the northern part of which today we call Spain.
North of Spain.
North of Spain, the Basque country, right?
Yeah.
And they took boats to the sea, and eventually they ended up in Ireland, in the south of Ireland, where the Tuatha De Danann were already living there. And that was the first time that these two civilizations met. And what we mean by the fire of Prometheus is that the Hyperboreans, the Tuatha De Danann, had not a lot of knowledge and information of the past, but they could not decipher them. As Rodrigo mentioned before, they lacked the capability of understanding and having the ability to understand their own reality and how things happen. But they understood that the human being was able to do that. So when we mean the fire of Prometheus, is they were actually giving to the human beings the knowledge. They were giving to them the ability to, we know that you are able to decipher this information, so we're going to give this to you. So at that time, that's when the information that they had was passed along to the Milesians.
Yeah, the Tuatha De Danann told the Milesians, or the sons of Miles that live in the north of Spain, as Moacir already said, the Tuatha De Danann said to them, we have this knowledge, but we don't know how to understand the knowledge we have. We know that you, humans, can do it. Try to find a way to understand our knowledge that now we are giving to you. So, the humans, with the help of Prometheus, the help of many people that are not human, they began to build in the Ireland, in the Scotland, 2 schools that we call them Arch-Druid schools, to find a way to understand the knowledge that the humans are received, they have received from the Tuatha. So this is how emerged the expression Druid method, because in Celt language, Druid means look for the truth, look for the right thing. Many, many years later, 13, 12 years later, in Greek, Druid became philosophy. That means the same search, the same task, to look for the truth. So at that time, these 2 colleges, one in Ireland, another one in Scotland, these both, they try to interpret a way to understand the Tuatha knowledge. What is the problem here? These 2 colleges, they realize that, in fact, human can understand everything, but not all humans. Only a human being that use the Druid method as his education. Because if you are going to use your consciousness, your personal consciousness to believe, to be devout, it will not function, it will not work. You have to learn how to look for the truth without devotions, beliefs. So this is the Druid method.
So the Druid method appears among the sons of Aaron and the sons of Odin. Panels to be perceived and studied. Number 1, the human being as a decipher of reality and its wounds, and human nature and the psychic spiritual tool that constructs the solution to the established existential problem. So these are the 2 things that Elon was mentioning right now. So these people that were studying and were going deeper into this information, they were trying to decipher or understand these 2 different components of everyday life. How beings could decipher its reality, and what was the connection between the psychic and spiritual world that establishes the problem that Rodrigo brought before about the creation of our own universe and everything that's inside of it. How to understand that? Why was it created this way? How did it end up being this way?
Quick question about the Tuathas.
Okay.
How did they get all the knowledge and the magical objects that they had? Since they didn't know how to understand, so they got from somewhere, right? And in terms of their name, to the Tuathas of Dunnan, does this has any connection with the Anunnaki? Because I've heard somewhere in terms of the Dana, they thought
yes. As being an Anunnaki being.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any connection?
Part of that I can explain. The other part, Allan can probably explain. I'll get the later part of that. We have to remember that the Anunnaki are physical beings of our universe. The Tuatha De Danann are hybrid people. So right off of the bat, we really can't have a connection between the Anunnakis and them because they're completely different species from different places. And although the Anunnaki were here a long time before, they arrived here around 450,000 years ago, they were living in a different area of the planet, and they were biological beings. Now, the Tuathas being, from the Hyperborean and being extra physical in part, they had a lot of the knowledge just because they lived and they existed for a long, long time. Now, I'm sure Jan Val can explain a little bit better how they managed to get, and we're going to speak about this in the next slides, the magical swords and stones and things that they had.
Okay. Two sources or two things are the answer for your question. The first one, shamanism. What we understand as shamanism is a long process that began 37,000 years ago, Paleolithic time, when the people that live in this neighbor universe, anti-material universe, began to coexist with some Homo sapiens, rational, because at that time, some Homo sapiens already have in their blood the gene called FOXP2 that is responsible for our rationality. So at that time, people who lived there talked to people who lived here, biological people and hybrid people. And they said to Homo sapiens, plant this kind of seed and mix this seed with the other seeds and try to develop some kind of tree, and with the raízes, the roots of this tree that has more than 500 complex molecules, you will find a way to make a tea or something like that and to drink, because it will be easier for you to see us, to talk to us. So a bridge, a kind of magic bridge, was opened at that time between people from there and people who lived here. This knowledge about roots, about health care, about develop consciential perception. So this knowledge, it was appropriated by Hyperborean people. So this is one of the answers for your question. The other one was Thoth or Ningizizida. This is his name, or this is his Sumerian name. Thoth is Egyptian name. This is the most intelligent person, Anunnaki person, that lived on Earth until today. Thoth went or came to Hyperborean land many times and gave his knowledge, to Hyperborean. So We're talking here about history that has millennia. It's difficult to tell about all the stages, all the epochs that we have here. But so, thought in contact with Hyperborean people, hybrid people and human people, and shamanism in its history are these are the two sources that explain the development, the many things that happen in Hyperborean times, right? So, if we are going to talk about Celt people, we have to understand that Celt people today, Celt people inhabited Gaul, Britain, Germania, the Iberian Peninsula, and the British Isles. The greatest incidence of their myth was concentrated, however, in the lands of Erin, as Ireland was called. The Tuatha De Danann, an expression that means people of the goddess Dana. Let me tell you, Dana was not Anunnaki, right? I know that. I know 2 or 3 books that talk that Dana, the goddess of the Tuatha, is the same Ishtar, but it's not true. Dana is Dana is another. She has another. The problem is Dana is not she. It's different. I don't know how can I say that. And as Moacir said at the beginning of our lecture, we're talking about one of the many peoples who lived in Hyperborean times. Tuatha De Danann is only one people. So we have many lost, forgotten histories here, right? So Dana is not she, but many scholars say something in this direction. Well, so the Tuatha De Danann arrived on the island of Erin during a summer festival called the Beltane, at the time of the fires of Bel, when bonfires were lit in honor of the god Bel, or Belenos, the sun. And the Tuatha De Danann, when they arrived on the island, they took the fire and burned their ships as if they say, we are not going to come back to Hyperborean. We came to stay.
We have to also remember that we're just talking about less than 200 or 300 individuals or beings. This is not thousands and thousands of people that arrived here. There were just 2 or 3 boats that arrived with the Tuatha De Danann here. And as he just mentioned, they came to establish themselves here and not leave again. So in honor of that, they burned all their boats saying, we're staying here for forever, more or less. So Hyperborean facts. The Tuatha De Danann, non-human people, similar to the people from the Mahabharata, arrived by sea, and as soon as they disembarked, they burned their ships, signifying that they had come here to stay. Why are we making a reference to Hindu Mahabharata? It's just to mention that, again, as in that mythology, we're talking about non-human beings. We're talking about species that are from other places, not from Earth, and they're hybrid. Hyperborean facts. Their previous home had been the mysterious Hyperborean cities of Phalius, Gurius, Phindius, and Murius. From each of them, they had brought to the new lands a precious treasure: the stone of destiny, the god Luke's spear of Asal, the sword of Nuanda, and the cauldron of Dagdat, which are the magical, pieces that you're talking about right now. And each of these different pieces or objects had different meanings, and they had different uses. Some of them were made for war, them were made during the shamanic rituals to gain more access to information. The Stone of Destiny, for example, it was a stone that could actually speak, and it would say which the new ruler, the new, ruler of the land would be. It would say the name of the person. It sounds strange, but this is the way all the mythology brought down to us says that. All the oral traditions and everything said that they would have these rituals, and the stone would speak and say, such and such will be the new ruler of the land.
In the past, the Stone of Destiny belongs to Irish people. But today, it's believed that it was in England. Charles III, all the kings and queens of England, in the day they will be begin to reign, they because they have the Stone of Destiny, they believe it, right?
And the stone is still speaking.
No.
Because I know that they say that, okay, Charles, you will do your thing now.
But yeah, the Great Britain, they destroyed all the history of Scotland and the Irish research. Everything. And here we have a cauldron of Baghdad that has secrets that we cannot imagine. All the history that took place in Asgard, Nordic mythology that we'll still talk about, and it was destroyed at the Ragnarok. All the knowledge of alchemy, it was destroyed, and the cauldron of Baghdad, it was the Tuatas was trying to rescue from this past, from the shamanism news that came from Asgard, how to do it again. So how to mix roots, leaves, how to do it again. And they made it. But 14,000 years ago, everything was lost. So the cauldron of Baghdad is o resto dessa tentativa, the rest of this attempt. Today, 4 people who lived in Asgard are human, and 3 of them are receiving the same news, and they are rewriting the oldest of the ancestral formulas, again, of roots, of leaves, of mineral that we found in some stones. They are trying to rescue the same knowledge, forgotten, lost knowledge.
Who are they?
They live in Brazil. The one I know who is more a man called Noé, who lives in Rio Grande do Sul. Noé is one of these guys. So I think somebody here perhaps should have.
At some point, will we spread or share information?
They are trying to produce this alchemy products, right? The one who received these informations I don't know him, but his name is Aleixo. But let me tell you, there are more than 20 people that came from Asgard and today are human trying to do it. But only these, until now, really, they began to rescue, to rewrite all these formulas, right? So here is the four sacred objects or gifts, or I don't know how can I classify gifts that Tuatha De Danann gave to human people, right? And plus their knowledge.
Ireland and Celtic mythology. The Tuatha and the Firbolgs or Formar, or the Formorians, who already resided on the island of Erin. As time passed, the two peoples, people of the demon homo transition, met, beginning the disputes and combats that subjugated the Firbolgs. The Tuatha De Danann came to rule Ireland. Bres was the first king of the Tuatha, followed by Nuanda, killed in battle, and Lug. So as we were mentioning before, the Tuatha is one of the many different species of beings living in the Hyperborean. The Formorians were also Hyperboreans, and they had arrived here before, and they were already living in Ireland. When the Tuatha arrived here, they started confrontation between them, fights and wars. Eventually, the Tuatha won the war, and they were able to live in a certain, they kind of made a peace treaty. You live in this region here, we'll stay in this region here, we won't fight anymore, we're kind of trying to stay together. So this is a description of what happened at that time. So when they got here, there already existed another species of Hyperborean people living here. Yeah.
Who is Erin?
Erin could be also Odin. We're not sure of that or not, but there's some lines of knowledge and history that might be the same entity.
Talking about mythology, we have Odin, and we have Erin. But nobody knows who is Erin. Odin, everybody knows. In accordance to what I think I know, they are the same Odin, okay? But it's different from what we find, the traditional beliefs in Celtic mythology. Nobody knows who is Erin.
Yes.
So, about the symbols, do we have any idea or any knowledge about their whereabouts?
You're talking about the runes?
The symbols.
Well, we're going to get to that in the next slides.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
All right.
Okay.
So we are just repeating what we already said before, just to give you more information, okay?
Ireland and Celtic mythology. Later, there was an invasion of the Milesians who did them. The Milesians, however, had great admiration for the abilities of Tuatha and allowed them to stay in Ireland as long as they occupied the underground worlds. When the legend appears that refers to them as the people of fairies, gnomes, and elves. The Hyperboreans, the transitional demon homo race, received visits from Apollo and the god Zeus in generation. So again, we're going a step forward in time. Now we're getting closer to around 12,000 years ago, when the Milesians left Spain, the northern part of Spain, by boat and arrived here in Ireland. They were met by the Tuatha that were living here already for probably 1,000 or 2,000 years already. And again, wars happened. And at this time, the Milesians were stronger and they defeated the Tuatha. But they actually admired their culture and their knowledge. And instead of telling them to leave the land, they said, well, we can live here together, but since you have the technology, you have a means of not living in the same dimension that we are, we're going to stay in the regular world, and you're going to, which mythology calls underworlds, but it's just a form of saying they're living in a different dimension. And even earlier today, before we started, we were talking here, and I was talking to Jan Val, and I said, they're still alive. And he said, yeah, actually, some of them are here to watch the presentation today. So it's interesting, as Rodrigo was saying, that these dimensions can be right here. They can be right close to us. We're not seeing them. So it's not like something that's
We
far
have
away.
more to other people than humans in this room
Watching the
watching
lecture.
this lecture. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so in my head, I was trying to understand where the fairy was settling this. So because in meditation, I was in a Celtic shamanic circle, and there was this 3-meter high fairy, and she contacted me about 3 times already, and she seems to me like an elemental, because of her energy, I would say. So it's astrophysical. So she comes from the Tuatha people, you believe?
Yeah.
Okay. Because to me, she was just part of the elemental world.
Tuatha people means part of the elemental world, as we realize in our understanding. Tuatha people is strange. They have horses who speak. Horses. Yeah, I'm not talking about centaurs. I'm talking about horses.
Yeah.
And our horses, biological horses, some of them can see Tuatha people. It's a crazy thing. And Tuatha, they are the only people that are not human, that's not human. And they do not have sex, but they learn how to create new people. So the Tuatha people is growing in this dimension, parallel dimension here in Ireland. They have beings that are the size. Yeah,
They have all kinds of them.
all kinds.
Some of them look like trees. Some of them look like bushes. Some of them are very small. Some of them are green.
And they are good people. They do not represent any kind of dangers for nobody. It's the only people I know that I can say something. The rest of, oh my God. But they are strange.
One thing that's funny, I just remembered now, is that sometimes we think these people are strange and odd looking. And Jan Val mentioned this a lot. They think we're ugly people too. So, we think that they're strange, but when they look to us, they say, well, that person's weird. That doesn't make any sense to them. So I guess it's, the same way around for them looking at us too.
And the Tuatha still are those people, those persons are still waiting for us, waiting how we are going to create the adult understanding, okay, right? For them, we are living the same history all the time. They gave their knowledge to human people. They live together with human people, but in a parallel dimension, and they are waiting for our answers, for their questions, for their task. They are, so it's a very interesting history. And the Irish people do not know anything about this phase of their lives.
And unfortunately, over time, as he mentioned, a lot of this information was destroyed. So here we are 10,000 years later, still talking about very basic information about them, when they hoped we would already be light years ahead because of the way we can comprehend things and do things. But unfortunately, wars, religion, dictators, they end with everything. So it must be very hard for them to see us falling into the same traps over and over again and not really going forward. One of the attempts of Cosmic Revelation is to try to bring some of this information to today so we can maybe start doing groups of study and people who have experiences to bring more information to more people, right?
Many other kind of people who live in other dimensions, they already did something in our DNA to put somebody from there that begin to born as human. That is the only one people that never did anything like this, because they are waiting. Yeah, they are waiting for the answers. They have no hurry. They are completely different from everything we may imagine that live in the locus of this neighbor universe. So
the Druid people emerge as a product of this context. The Druids as a people long predate the Celts. The Druid Lycourage people, prior to the biblical flood, informed the context of the Atlantean European peoples that emerged. Example, the Aryan Celtic tree. Hyperborea is the tool of the Aryans. Now, the big issue, the origin of Druidism is found in the Hyperborean context. So going back here, the Druid people, as he was explaining before, the people that were seeking knowledge are much ancient than the actual Celtic mythologies or culture. It predates that long before. It would be a continuation of that same culture. The Celts would be in the future, right? And he already spoke a little bit about the Atlanteans, right? The context is a little bit different than where we're talking here, different area, probably different species, different kinds of beings too. Is there anything you wanted to add to this?
yeah, using other words, 2,200 years ago, for example, Druid was a kind of priest that the humans wrote in their papers talking about barbarians. Julius Caesar, for 50 years before Jesus Christ was born, he wrote in some kind of letter, the Gaulish people, barbarians, they have a druid as a priest, as a father or something like that. So this druid that Julius Caesar was talking about 2,100 years ago is completely different than the Druidism as it was 13,000 years ago. At that time, some scholars believe that the first people that lived here in Europe was a people called Druid or Liguric people. Came from Milesians, the sons of Milesians that lived in the north of Spain. So these people here, they create the two colleges, two arch-druidical colleges, one in Ireland and another one in Scotland, that the Druid method was created by them. So here we're talking about Gaelic, because we have Gaélico, Galaico, and Gaulês. I don't know how can I say this in English. But Gaélico, it's the more ancestral. We are talking about Druid and Liguric people. Galaico, it's another part of history, it's another time of history, and Gaulês is the most recently descendants of Druid or Liguric people, right? Thales of Mileto, I don't know how can I say this in English, who lived in Jonia, who created the philosophy. Thales of Mileto. Mileto means Milesian. Okay? So the fourth people that create the Greek people, and I'm talking here about the Aeons, Dóricos, Aqueus, and Aeolius. I don't know how can I say this in English. Aeolians. These four are Celtic people. But the Jonius, they are descendants from of the Milesians. Thales de Mileto significa Thales of Mileto. So the Druid method became philosophy because of this line. This is a line history, right?
But as he was mentioning, by the time of the Romans and the Greek, this was so diluted, it was so already different from the original Druidism that, as he was mentioning, it has nothing to do one thing to the other. Although Julius Caesar was mentioning them as Druids, it was already so far back. They had different rituals, they had different culture than the actual Druids had in the beginning.
In the revelation, spiritual revelation, in Allan Kardec, that was the man who codified the revelation. He was in France, in Paris, in the 1855 or 6, and he was
starting to
organize the news that he was receiving from spirits. One spirit incorporate in some medium, and said to him, Professor Revile, because his name was Revile, I know you because we were together when you were a Druid, and we were Druid together, and your name at that time was Allan Kardec. So Revile took as a pseudonym Allan Kardec because of this information. The people or the spirits believe that Allan Kardec was somebody who lived 1 century or 2 centuries before Christ, as at the time of the Gaulish people. But it's not true. The Allan Kardec that the spirit was talking about lived at the time of Druid or Liguric people, because the Druid, the origin of Druidism is found in the Hyperborean context. And this time, each Druid was a man who was learning how to do it, how to practice the Druid method, right? So,
Scotland and Nordic mythology.
Go ahead.
The College of Priest Poets. The College of Priest Poets that migrated to the south had in its members the mark of being considered sons or descendants of Boreas, of Bor, the heavenly breath, ancestor of the old Odin. In fact, his father, with Besla, generated Odin. Another mark of this college of priests would be the ancestry of Bor, whose father was Buri, generated by Phanes or Protogonus, Orphic mythology, who was a descendant of Orlog. After his disappearance, he was called Norvi as a Jotun being. Jotun are the giants of the Norse mythology.
As you see, we began to talk now about Scotland and Nordic mythology, okay? Celtic mythology is finished. Now we are going to talk about Nordic mythology, right? And one of the colleges at that time that was built in this kind of culture, right? Culture. So, what we may talk about this college? Nothing, because it was destroyed. But some people who lived in Scotland received the news, the ancestral news, and became to organize, but the Great Britain in the 17th century destroyed everything. So today we have nothing about this history. So we have the mythology, the Nordic mythology with some histories, and we have others that came from spiritual revelations, okay? So we have to separate these two groups of informations about Nordic mythology as we are here.
I just wanted to point out one thing. I know a lot of you watch his videos and read his books, and this being Funes or Protogonos is the same being as Mohen Soul. So he mentions him a lot more than he mentions Protogonos, but it's the same being that Rodrigo mentioned about the town project that was bringing life from one universe to the other. So that's the same being right here.
The Tuatha De Danann, when gave their knowledge to the humans, they do not talk about God. They do not talk about many things, that we can see. We can see now in all of mythologies that talk about a Trimurti, Trindad, Triad, Trinity, right? So we have a Celtic Trinity, but it's not famous because the Tuatha De Danann, they do not talk about it, and the Milesians and the Celtic mythology do not talk about it. But the Nordic, they have a history completely different from the other mythologies.
Is there a link between the Celtic culture to the Taraland? You know Taraland in Ireland here? There's a lot of circles and circles.
Yeah.
And do you have there is any link between the Celtic or the Druid
Yeah.
and the Tara?
Yeah, but not talking about Trinity, okay? We have some kind of relations with these constructions, but talking about astronomer informations. Okay? Like Stonehenge or something like that,
so
right?
It's not linked
That's
to the,
different.
Celtic culture.
No, talking about Trinity, right?
It's connected, but not in the meaning that he's saying. It's connected more with astronomy than with gods or divine beings.
Okay.
But it is from the same culture.
Yeah, but the creator in the Celtic mythology is called as Agni, right? It's the Brahma. Rodrigo told about it. But in the Nordic mythology, the creator is a strange, you may call Ymir.
It's the next page.
Yeah. But Ymir, he doesn't have any kind of importance for the Nordic mythology. The Nordic mythology says that Orlog is the one, the Nords, three beings that Orlog created from his code are the other part, important part in this history. And before and after this, we have Buri, Bor, Odin and his two brothers. These people were important to the universal history, not Ymir. And here we have a strange new about the thing called word. And we're going to talk about these issues because we have to understand our lives.
Just remembering the line that he says, so Buri is the father of Bor, which is the father of Odin. So these are much more important in the Norse mythology than when we look at Hinduism and see Brahma, Vishnu, and they talk a lot about them. They really don't have a lot. They speak about Ymir right in the beginning, but then he kind of disappears from the story. Okay, Scotland and North America. Bor is considered one of the co-creator gods of the universe. In the legacy of these schools, Celtic and Norse mythologies meet, appearing here the figures of bards, decipherers of reality, and priests, all sometimes called druids in their different eras. So again, we're the same word meaning different things in different times for different cultures, but again, the seeker of truth, the person who's trying to bring knowledge to the forefront of the times.
Okay. So let's talk about these three issues to finish our lecture. It's so strange because we have more than 100 mythologies on Earth. In the human culture, we have more than 100 mythologies. They are different, each from other. But in the Nordic mythology, this issue, this matter, emerges as the most important page of the mythological news. Orlog is called in the Greek mythology as Morus, and in the Slavs mythology as Sud. Okay, Orlog created a kind of computer called the Word, and in this Word, all the codes of life of each body, of each being who lived in this parallel universe was registered in the Word, and this Word has only one rule: what comes
From an individual
from one code comes back to this same code or individual.
We can call this a database of information of all living beings, all matter in the universe. It's a database.
So the mythology, the Nordic mythology, explains. This is the only mythology that did this. Explain how the things, how the informations are organized, and the role, the logic, the law that faz isso funcionar.
Makes it work.
We Christians, as we are today, we believe that there was a kind of justice. The Hindus, they believed in the karma, but everything we're talking here about karma or justice of God or something or somebody in his place, everything is word. It's the only thing that is working good in this creation.
There's an English saying that says, what goes around comes around. So it's a little bit of what he's saying. What comes out of you eventually will come back to you. You know?
And nobody on earth knows anything about the word.
But isn't it the same of Akasha,
No.
the Akasha records?
Akasha records, we're talking about the electron memories. Electrons, okay? We have proton, neutron in the nuclear, and electrons. And the electron has memory, a quantum memory. The only thing that really lives in this history is the electron. The science says the quantity of electrons is the same at the beginning of the Big Bang and today. Nothing is created, nothing is lost, but everything changes. What means everything? The electric memory. Here we're talking about Akashian register, right? It's one thing. Word and his law that what goes
What goes around comes around.
comes around is another thing, right? So, many years ago, Orlog, he realized that all the beings who lived in this parallel universe, they are sick, including him, Orlog. Because all of the beings that lived there, they had and they have until today a strange code, a code that came from part of the body of Ymir. Ymir is the creator in the Nordic mythology that was disintegrated. So we're talking here about a body who became podridão, rotten. And each part of this rotten is has its portion of rotten. And each being was edificated or created from this rotten part. So everybody has rotten bodies. And Orlog realized that and began to write all the possible codes that were existing in the bodies of plasma. That is the way how the beings live in this parallel universe. And in accordance to this perception, in accordance to this understanding, Orlog created the word to organize, not to punish, not to teach anything, just to organize the bits, the informations that each code that live generates and receive it's back. So this is what word means. But the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and here I'm using their names in the Hindu mythology. They want to know the secrets that Allah had discovered, because they want to know the vulnerability of each other. And Allah didn't give this information to the Trinity. So Allah took his knowledge and divided in 4 parts. 3 of these 4 parts are the 3 norms called Word, verdandi, and skuld, they are not woman. There is no man and woman in this history. They're not male or female. There is, at that time, there wasn't. Nothing like that. So Orlog created three beings and gave to each one 25% of his knowledge, and he continued to 25 of his knowledge. But the Trinity, they wanted to appropriate this knowledge, to dominate everybody. So Orlog took the rest of his knowledge, divided in three parts, and shot to a temporal. He created a parallel dimension and hidden in this parallel dimension these three parts. And after that, he showed to the Trinity, I don't have anything more. I don't know nothing. I know nothing now. But they continue to pursue Orlog, and Orlog disappeared. And the three Norns, called in the Nordic mythology, Urd, Verdandri, Skuld, these three persons, Urd became to organize the information about what happened. Vivandri began to understand what was happening.
The reality at the time.
The exact time in present time. And Skuld, with the informations I'm going to call it she looked at what word was taken note, and in some point of this history, Skuld began to receive what will be necessary to be done in future to adjust what word had already took note about what happened. So these three Norns represent everything the gods or the beings who lived in this parallel universe. They had to understand their own destiny. So if before they looked to Orlog and asked something to Orlog, now they only had three Norns to talk or to ask something about the destiny that was waiting for them. So the Nordic mythology is the only one who shows how things are inside our genes, because our genes, our genome is the result of the word, the codification of the word. So the Nordic mythology has this precious information, but the Trinity do not accept that is the ultimate truth for them, because if it was their destiny, is already written by our heart. One day we'll understand better. But the Ragnarok that took place 300 million of years ago was a kind of tentativa, attempt of the Trinity to destroy these informations that they believed was hidden in Yggdrasil. That was a conglomerate of 9 realms, and the Trinity imagined that these informations are hidden in this place.
Allan, can I interrupt you for a second?
Oh,
Before we get into a little bit more into depth with the Ragnarok, we would like to do another break because we have everything ready there right now. And then when we come back, we will finish with the Ragnarok and we can do some questions and answers too. But everything's already warmed up and ready for everybody. So we're just going to take a fast break and then we're going to finish with the rest of the Ragnarok.
are you sure about it?
Well, I was told by 3 different people that I needed to stop.
So
I just obey orders.
I didn't know about the second break.
They want to fill your tummy.
15 minutes, right? Let's.
Okay.
So just to finish, please do it. I pay a salary to speak in English, so.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna get a salary. Yay! It's on record. It's on record. You can't. What comes to comes back, so you can't take it out.
Talk about Ragnarok, please.
So just to finish, Allan was starting to talk about the Ragnarok and the importance that it had for the Trimurti. So their idea, their conception was that since they couldn't get the information from Orlog, they couldn't get the information from the Norns, well, let's just destroy everything and then get over with it. And Allan has a few lectures that he has in Portuguese that talks about the cosmic mirror, as how Yggdrasil was an example, was trying to be an example or could be an example for the other planets, the other antimaterial universe, to the other beings, as an example of how to conduct yourself, how to do things. But that didn't go really well with the Trimurti because they wanted the control, they wanted the power, they didn't want anybody else to be doing that. And since they couldn't have that, their attempt was, at that time, what their mythology called Midgard was actually here in our solar system in the planet Mars. That was the only realm of the 9 realms that was actually in the biological universe. And at that time, they decided that they were going to destroy everything. So around 300 million years ago, I can't say that they threw, but they sent what we would call today like nuclear bombs or nuclear artifacts to Mars. It exploded a little bit above the ground level, and it wiped out everything in Mars. Everybody that was there at that time, including Thor was there at that time, Loki died, Odin died, Heimdall died, a lot of people died. The main characters that were here, they died in this explosion. And until today, you can see on the face of Mars, there's a 700-kilometer line that's a mile or 2 deep of this explosion that happened in the atmosphere, and it ripped the surface of Mars out. And actually, when the Mars rover went to Mars a decade ago, and they was analyzing the soil in Mars, they found components, chemical components, that are only found when are present a nuclear or disaster or a bomb or something like that. But it has to have the fission of the nuclear, explosion to have that kind of components on the ground. So at that point, This explosion also occurred in other levels of Yggdrasil, destroyed several different planets, and they had castles, they had different, Asgard was destroyed. Apparently, from what we know, there's only one, what we can call a castle or a place of living, let's put it that way, a building, a structure that remained, only one remained still standing after all these different explosions occurred. So at that point, most of the beings living, we had elves, dwarves, giants, we had a bunch of different beings living in these different realms. All of these were extinct. In his books, he talks a lot about what the spirit of these beings happened with, to where they ended up going. Some went to be like a biodemo, others haven't reincarnated, not a good term, reincarnated, but they're still in the spiritual level. So that kind of brings us to the end of what we wanted to present here for the North and Celtic mythologies. So unfortunately, as a lot of good things that happen at the end, there's always somebody that wants to get rid of it. And we were talking a lot about that here with the Celtic mythology, how churches and kings and so many people destroyed so much information. This has been going on since the beginning of our creation. People continue to destroy things. They want to take advantage of things. They want to possess things. And it's a cycle that keeps on going. And this happened 300 million years ago. And, today, part of us that are here on Earth are descendants, are the same flame of the people who used to live back on Mars. Some of these people are here today. And they're trying again to bring this knowledge back, or trying to recreate something as good as it was in the past, or even better. But it's hard, we've been here for thousands of years, and we keep on going through these cycles of destructions. And as Allan mentions a lot, climate change, a lot of things are going to start, well, we're already seeing it starting, but it's going to get worse and worse. And all these things make it very hard for us to get things, moving forward. But as he mentions, there's always a small group of people that are seeking the truth, that are trying to go through the Druid method of seeking the truth and trying to learn more and spread the word. So we hope that with this lectures today, we can open a new chapter here in Ireland and start bringing more information here, and maybe form a group of people that would like to continue studying and developing, his teachings and the things that he's bringing from these different mythologies and from the spiritual realm too. So I want to thank everybody for being here today, and hope to see you in the next event. We're going to make sure we get everybody's contacts to send information out. And if Allan has any words just to close up. I'm already talking a lot. So thank you very much for being here, and hope to see you soon. Take care.